Hey guys, welcome back to Valareso Capital. On today's video, we're gonna go through the weekly watch list. In this video that I share every Monday, we go through the most important names that I'm gonna be watching for the week. We go through the most important levels that I'm gonna be watching, and we also go through the actionable level of the setups that I'm gonna share. So if you wanna know those levels, make sure to stick all the way to the end of this video. Just remember guys that we have some very important data release on Wednesday, and since that is a binary event, basically anything can happen, so just be aware of that, because when we have those kind of events, we tend to see that those can really have a strong effect in technicals, meaning that the technicals don't tend to be as highest of a probability when we get these binary events. So just keep that in mind. So let's just jump directly into the charts. So the first name that I'm going to share with you that I'm going to be watching, as always, is going to be the S&P, which I consider to be one of the easiest names to trade and one of the most consistent names to trade in the market, given that we have a lot of volume coming into the S&P as always, and it tends to respect the levels pretty accurately. So as you can see, I have all the drawings in my chart. Let me just hide most of the drawings so we can talk about the setup. So what is going to be the setup with the S&P is actually going to be a pretty easy setup, and it's going to be my bread and butter setup. First of all, you can see that the SPY once again is right here at this level of resistance, which is 4,100. So that's a very important level of resistance. You can see it here on the chart. Also, it's really important to mention that the squeeze that we had is already starting to lose a little bit of momentum. This doesn't mean that we're gonna see a complete change in the structure of the market, but we tend to see this when we are very close to a reversion back to the mean. What is the reversion back to the mean in my language? Is basically just a pullback to the 21 exponential moving average, which is this light blue EMA in my charts. Now, what I like about the S&P is that as you can see, we continue to have a positive trend oscillator, and you can see that we actually had a pretty strong move to the upside. Now that we are at resistance, the question is, where do we actually buy the S&P, right? I'm sharing the S&P futures because I tend to see a lot of accuracy in the levels that we tend to trade in the S&P futures. So you can basically use the S&P futures, and then you can execute the idea. You can use the XPX, you can use the SPY, you can use the leverage ETFs, whatever. So you can use basically everything, and you can use the ES futures kind of as the compass for actually knowing the levels. So what is going to be the level? The trade is going to be pretty easy. The trade is going to be just a buy of the pullback, right? We're going to be waiting for that pullback into support, basically a pullback all the way back to 4,000. That's going to be ideally where we are going to be looking for. Probably we're going to go a little bit lower, perhaps to, let's say, 3,995. I know that's pretty kind of, it's just points low, just 5 points lower, but I think it's mostly where we're gonna go. Also, besides that 21 exponential average, we also have these first quant pivot level of support, which is basically just the first standard deviation of support from the opening of the week, and you can see that the opening of the week was up here. So I don't want to buy the SPY at the 8 exponential moving average. This could act as a level of support. However, the probabilities say that the better buy is going to be all the way down into that 21 exponential moving average. So I'm going to be really patient with that setup. The next setup that I want to share with you is going to be the CB futures. And what is really interesting in the CB futures is that you can see pretty clearly that we continue to have this cup and handle setup right here, right? And that's actually pretty. It's a really pretty chart. And let me just bring my drawings for a little bit here. You can see that we have this trend line, right? You can see that we have this trend line just going all the way down here, and you can see that the CB is actually holding that 21 exponential moving average. If we hide the drawings again, so we can look at that 21 exponential moving average a little bit clearer, you can see that we are finding a little bit of support there. You can see that the trend oscillator continue to be above that midline, and you can see that we are actually starting to go into a low compression squeeze. This low compression squeeze can lead to really nice moves to the upside, and you can see that we had a couple. Now we're starting to see the build up for a new low compression squeeze. Now what is going to be the target? The target is actually going to be pretty easy, and let me just bring my drawings back again. You can see that we actually have a Fibonacci extension. We have a Fibonacci extension right here, somewhere around 132, and that's measured from this high right here to this low right here. And if we happen to get that move, right, we come out of this flag and we happen to come into that extension that also happens to coincide with the first level of the first standard deviation of resistance for the week. So I'm probably gonna be looking for that as a possible level of resistance, and this setup is actually actionable right now. So if you want to execute this with TLT, with CB futures, with the TMF for some leverage stocks, you can also do that. But this setup as of now is actionable. This is the buy. This is basically the buy area. As long as we continue to trade above that 21 exponential moving average, we should see a little bit of support before a continuation to the upside. So this one is actually looking pretty nice. If we move into the next name that I'm gonna be sharing, that's gonna be the XBI. So the XBI is gonna be the ETF for the biotech stocks, right? So what I really like about this biotech, let me see if we can go to another chart that I have right here. You can see that we had this very strong basically base of consolidation, and you can see that we actually came above it. So we are now trading above that base of consolidation. However, we are starting to run into some levels of resistance as the ones that I have right here in this chart. If we go back to the main chart, you can see that the XBI, after meeting this level, is finding a little bit of pause. Now, what is really interesting is that this pause is also coming in kind of in conjunction with the pause that we're seeing in the SPY. Now, if the SPY happens to revert all the way back to the 21 exponential moving average, I'm expecting a little bit more pullback in the XBI. So where's gonna be this actionable? This is actually what I'm looking for, is a reversion back also to that 21 exponential moving average, which is a little bit up here. But if we happen to come all the way back down to that first quant pivot level of support, I think that's going to be a pretty nice level to actually buy this. And what is really interesting is that this is probably going to coincide with the retest of that DTL, right? That trend line that we had before we had this small breakout to the upside. So that's gonna be for XBI. I'm also looking for a pullback, and then the final setup that I'm gonna share with you is gonna be CRDO. This is actually a pretty popular name right now in FinTweet, and of course, right, we had a really nice move coming out of a squeeze, coming out of a nice trend oscillator that is trading above that midline. But what is actually really interesting to understand is that we are we're meeting some resistance right now, and this is important to understand because this is the first time that we are actually coming all the way back up into this level of resistance. This is starting to look like a base, right? You can see that we have the base right here. We're starting to make a little bit of higher lows. Perhaps we're gonna see another higher low before actually breaking out, and that's actually where I'll be looking to get some exposure into this name, right? So the name is actually looking pretty nice. We had a pullback into that 8 exponential moving average. However, given that I like a little bit more, I like to get my exposure at levels where I can manage my risk a little bit better. I'm gonna be watching for that first standard deviation to the downside. So if we happen to see a little bit more pullback in the SPY, if we happen to see that reversion back to the mean, we're probably gonna be CRDO coming all the way to that first standard deviation, or perhaps even to test this breakout level. Probably we're gonna come all the way to that 21 exponential, and I think that that's gonna be a really nice level to get some exposure to this name and perhaps a continuation to the upside. So those are basically gonna be the 4 names that I'm gonna share. I did have another one. I also was looking at XLV, and let me just hide the drawings for a second. I was also looking at XLV here, and what is interesting about XLV is that we have the squeeze, we have the trend oscillator pointing to the downside, and I also mentioned XLV in my weekend video. So if you haven't watched that, I'm gonna put a link into the description, and you can also see that link popping right into the screen right now. and I was watching for this is trading exactly as I was expecting. However, I hesitated in my position today, so I failed to open my position. I was looking actually for a move back up to that 8 exponential. I got it, but I didn't execute it, right? I didn't execute it, and this is starting to work pretty nicely. The target for this one, if you want to get it, I think is a little bit extended, so the risk reward is no longer there. But the target is going to be this first standard deviation that is coming right around that 200 daily moving average. So it's pretty nice to see this one working. I was going to share it, but this one already triggered. So there's no need to chase this one. If we happen to see another pullback, because if we happen to see that pullback in the SPY, then XLV most likely is going to continue to work, but then we're going to get opportunities to buy the pullback in the names that we already discussed. So once again, thank you so much guys for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and also to follow me on my Twitter account at Valareso Capital. Thank you guys so much once again, and I'll see you in future videos. Bye bye.